Hey, welcome everybody. My wife and I took our long-awaited European vacation. Now, this was a month-long trip to Europe that included a couple of cruises. We flew to Europe. We did what we call a pre-cruise vacation, and then we turned around, did a back-to-back cruise. We did a 12-night, 12-day Greek Isle cruise, and we'll get into that here in another video. And then we did a back-to-back and went through that process of actually doing a back-to-back cruise, followed by a 13-day cruise from Barcelona, Spain, back to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So this is going to be broken up into, I think, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 videos. We'll have the pre-cruise video, which is what we're going to do here, followed by the cruise video, which is going to be a compilation of the 2 cruises that we were on, followed by the back-to-back, which is the back-to-back process, probably going to be about 7-8 minutes long. And then we'll do one on the shore excursions that we took, because we took quite a few shore excursions. So let's get started, shall we? As with all of our cruise videos, it all starts at the Phoenix International Airport, Sky Harbor Airport, and this was gate F10. This is where we started out, and we were flying Delta this time. Had to go to Salt Lake City, Utah, to catch our flight. And there's the 2 of us as we were waiting in Salt Lake City. We decided we would just chill for a little bit, wait, and we only had a couple hours before that flight took off. It was a 9-hour flight, I think, 9 or 10-hour flight to Paris, to Charles de Gaulle Airport. Cathy did not want me to take her picture other than the one you just saw, but I did anyway. I snuck that in. She wasn't real happy with it. When we got to Paris, it was the next morning. We landed about 9:30 after having slept all night and really not slept at all. Sleeping on a plane is not my idea of a good time. We did take a taxi from the airport to our hotel. We stayed in the first arrondissement, is I think the way they pronounce it. And this picture here is of the Paris Opera House. And so Cathy took this picture as we were on our way. This was the stadium. This was, I think, one of the top stadiums that they used in the Paris Olympics, and we drove right by it, and it was still up and running. Of course, it was after the Olympics and we got there, but this was the stadium from the road. When we got to our hotel, we checked in, and we decided that we were going to try and do a power nap for a couple of hours and then walk over to the Louvre. This was the reason we were in Paris. It's always been Cathy's dream to see the Louvre and see all the fantastic pieces of artwork that are in there. And then, so we took a nap for a couple hours. She didn't sleep, I did. And then we walked over to the Louvre. Now, we stayed about probably 3 blocks away from where the Louvre was, and very quickly found it. Not a problem. It's a big building. You're not going to miss it. And this was the first picture that we saw, or that you see, of the Louvre. It was a first glimpse at it with the pyramid right there. Cathy was enthralled by the structure and took a picture. If you want to see the picture she was actually taking, there it is. That's the picture she was taking in that last picture. I took a picture of her taking this picture. The next day we came to the Louvre, and it was raining. In fact, it started raining as soon as we got back to the hotel and didn't stop for basically a full day, day and a half. It was wet. Now, we had a guided tour. We were there for 2 days. The first day we had a guided tour, and we used the tour guy. And I would highly recommend, if you're ever going anywhere, check out thetourguy.com and see whether or not they have tours available. This guy was unbelievable. You're going to see him in a couple of minutes. But it was raining, it was wet, and we had to meet by the statue that you see directly in front of us there. And that's where all of the tours meet at that particular point in time. Here's Cathy inside as we were waiting for the tour guy to get us all going and get us moving around. The storage areas were right behind where Cathy is. You can see one of them right there. In fact, I think that's ours. It has a little code, and you can put your coats and your slickers and your everything else in there. The umbrellas go in that umbrella stand, and so we were there inside. We were on a 6-person tour. There are only 6 people in our group. Now, at the Louvre, there were people like with 50, 60 people in their group. Would not want to be in that. But we had a great time, and our guide was tremendous. There's our guide. His name's Will. This was taken down in the bowels of the Louvre. The walls that you see are the original walls. This was originally built as a fortress, and this was the original walls that they had down in the Louvre. And Will took us through. This guy gave us a 4-year art degree in about 3 hours. It was amazing what this guy knew. There were 6 things that I wanted to see going through the Louvre, and he asked me the 6 things, and I told him, and he says, we're going to see all of those. This was the first. As we walked into the room that the Venus de Milo was in, he said, here's number 1. By the way, there is another, I didn't get a picture of it, but there is another display that has one of the hands from the Venus de Milo. Did not get a picture of it, but that is the Venus de Milo. The artwork that is involved in the actual Louvre is phenomenal. Now, this was at one time a palace, one of the palaces that the kings of France used. And you can see that they did an awful lot of artwork in this palace. This is the Wings of Victory Thérèse. This sits at the top of a long staircase, and it's just an incredible display. This is one of the oldest things that they've got in the Louvre, actually. It goes back several centuries and a few millennium, and it is unbelievable. But this was one of the 6 of the things that I wanted to see in the Louvre. I knew this was there, and this was just an incredible view. This is the King's Crown. Now, this was the King's Crown back before the Revolution, the French Revolution that took place in, 1789, I think? Anyway, if you look at the base of that crown, you're going to see the red ruby. Not the one right above it, but the one below it. All of the other gems in this particular crown are fake. Because when they had the French Revolution, the revolutionaries wanted to sell all of the valuables that the king had, and they sold all of them except for that bottom ruby. That's the only one that is actually valuable. Here's a queen's tiara and some other jewelry that the queen had, basically diamonds and emeralds. And I never would have thought to take a picture of this painting. This was of St. Francis of Assisi. Will, our guide, showed us this was St. Francis talking to Jesus. And it showed the pomposity, if you will, of St. Francis of Assisi being so blatantly talking directly to Jesus that he thought very highly of himself, that he had this painted. Anyway, that was kind of an interesting one. Oh, yeah. This is why everybody goes to the Louvre, the Mona Lisa. It is not as big as you think. It is not as small as you think. It might be 11 by 14, something like that. But it is not a big picture that Leonardo da Vinci created. And it hangs by itself on a huge wall. You're going to see the wall here in just a minute. But that is the Mona Lisa in all of its splendor. What's interesting is the crowd that gathers around to see this particular piece of artwork. That's a view from the side of the Mona Lisa, looking back at the crowd. And there weren't many people in there the day we were there. They have an area that if you're handicapped, you can get in front. You see the lady in the wheelchair there. But it only took 5 minutes to get up to the stanchions and take a picture, the one that you saw. So, it was not terribly long at all. And it's not the biggest painting in the room. The one on the opposite wall is huge, takes up the whole wall. Now, I told you about Will. There's Will. The wall that he's standing in front of is the backside of where the Mona Lisa is. The guides are not allowed to go to the Mona Lisa or be in that line, and if they find them there, they kick them out. So Will said, I'll meet you on the other side of the wall, and he did, and he and I had a really good conversation. Will, if you're watching, I finally got the video done, bud. Will is an Englishman that 20 years ago, or at the age of 20, moved to Paris, and he's been living there ever since. This guy knows the Louvre backwards, forwards, and sideways. Unbelievable. Here's a picture of one of the 6 that I wanted to see. This is the coronation of Napoleon. Now, Napoleon is sitting there holding the crown. Josephine is kneeling. The Pope is right behind Napoleon. And what's interesting in this is that everybody in this painting was actually there with the exception of one person. Who was that one person? Here you go. That woman seated right there. Who is she? That's Napoleon's mother. Napoleon's mother did not, and you can see Josephine down in the bottom right-hand corner here, but Napoleon's mother did not approve of Josephine and did not show up at the coronation of Napoleon. So he had her painted in to the picture. Just thought that little bit of a art trivia, if you will. This is Lady Liberty, and the do-rag on her head is, she's holding the French flag there, and this is, that has become the national symbol of France. If you look at their passport, if you look at any official French document, that hat or do-rag or whatever that she's wearing is actually on every official document in France. Interesting. The second day Cathy and I went back to the Louvre, we did it on our own. We went to the Denon wing, which was the opposite wing from where everybody goes. This is Cathy looking at stained glass that was actually painted. So it's not really what you and I would consider to be stained glass, but it is a painting of stained glass, which I thought was kind of neat. I thought this was kind of cool. This is the Virgin Mary holding baby Jesus in front of a relief of a cathedral. And I just thought it was neat. I just thought it's not famous or anything else, but it was sitting there all by its lonesome. This is a chess set that belonged to Louis XIV, and it is unbelievably intricate. The work involved in this was just unbelievable. This is a shopkeeper and his wife. This is one of the more interesting paintings and famous paintings over in the Denon wing of the Louvre. The shopkeeper is counting his money. The wife was reading a book, and she gets distracted by him counting his money. So we took this picture. It's very well thought of in France. Speaking of well thought of in France, of course, you know, you go to France, you've got to get yourself, what? A croissant, right? Cathy got a croissant. That was one of the things she wanted to do when we were in France, and by gosh, she got it. And this is Cathy holding the croissant. We got it at a patisserie after we went to the Denon wing and came back. There were many little patisseries and little shops and that type of thing where you can get all sorts of foods and sandwiches and whatnot. And this was the patisserie that we went to, and she got herself a croissant. This is our hotel room at the Hotel Therese in Paris. Now I'm standing in the doorway. This was not a big room. In fact, if you see at the foot of the bed, there's a round table there. And if you look over by the window, there's like a tray, and it's got a bottle, supposedly of champagne. I'm not sure what it was, but it was waiting for us. That was on that small table at the foot of the bed. I moved it because, quite honestly, I kept bumping into it. I had the other side of the bed, and Cathy had the near side of the bed. The chair you see close to us, bottom right in the picture, she says, "Don't sit in this. You'll go right through the bottom of it." It had a small desk. It had a coffee pot. Well, you basically put water in it and plugged it in, and yet had instant hot water. But the bed was very comfortable. It was a queen-size bed. And you can see to go past the bed, there was a closet there, or looked like a closet there. That's actually a refrigerator that we had in the room. The bathroom, very small. And the TV is up on the wall on the left. We didn't watch much TV. It was all in French. My French stopped when I was in the 10th grade. Here's Cathy and me waiting for our a ride back to the airport on the last day that we were in the Hotel Therese. We were there 4 days, and it was a pretty neat area. On the on the Friday, the day before we actually left, we decided we were going to take a bateau boat. These are a hop-on, hop-off boat in the Seine River. It makes 9 stops across the Seine, and you can get on, get off, and see. You can see Notre Dame. You can see the Eiffel Tower. You can see the City Hall of Paris. It's got various stops and whatnot. I took this on the way over to where the bateau boat is, and there's the Seine River with a barge in it. The Seine River was very high. It had been raining for 2 or 3 days, and it was really, really difficult. In fact, it got so bad that not many boats came up and down the Seine River that day, and the bateau boats had to cancel because they couldn't get under the bridge. The river was that high. However, those swans loved it. You can see it's almost ready to flood over the walkway here. In fact, if you went down past this bridge a little bit, it did flood over the walkway. We did get to see the Eiffel Tower. This is it in all of its glory. We walked down to that bridge and decided we did not want to walk the 1.7 kilometers over to the Eiffel Tower. Figured, okay, this is close enough. So we decided we would rather go back and look at the garden, which is on the other side of the Louvre. And this is that garden. It is a beautiful garden. It's very well maintained. A lot of the Parisians go there and throw a Frisbee around. They bring a picnic lunch in. They just have a good time. They sit and talk. There's a lot of statues and that type of thing there. In fact, this is one that my wife wanted me to take a picture of because my son went to the University of Cincinnati. His first job was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and this is of Cincinnatus. So we went ahead and we actually took a picture of that. This was the closest we got to the Eiffel Tower. Don't think we missed much at all. Back in the hotel, this is every afternoon, about 3:30, they would put teacups and tea and some gummies and some gummy bears and M&Ms and whatnot and a pound cake out for the people staying in the hotel so you could have yourself a little bit of tea in the afternoon, which I thought was kind of cool. And this was the front desk. These 3 ladies were absolutely phenomenal. We had a wonderful time with them. They were so helpful and spoke good English, and so we did have a good time with them. I spent a good deal of time talking to them, asking, various things about where to go to eat, and, they arranged our trip back to the airport for us at 3 o'clock in the morning, which was real early, but nonetheless, it was a good time. When we got back to the airport, we jumped on an Air France flight that went from Paris to Rome. And this is a picture of the Matterhorn in the Alps, the Swiss Alps. We flew right over the top of it, and it was a ways down. Of course, it was kind of cloudy, as it was still cloudy in Paris when we left. And here's Cathy and Rich, and we're enjoying things on the Air France flight. We had to check our carry-on luggage because the flight was full. And they sent us a text the night before we left and said, make sure you check your luggage. We'll let you do it for free. And so we did, and no problems with it. They treated us very, very well. Coming into Italy, this is Civitavecchia. This is the port of Rome, which is actually about 45-minute train ride from Rome, but it is right on the Mediterranean, and that light brown spot you see right by the Mediterranean itself is the city of Civitavecchia. That's how you pronounce it. And though it's spelled C-I-V, they pronounce it Civitavecchia. Anyway, that was that. When we got to the Rome airport, we took the Leonardo Express train into Rome. This is at Rome Termini. It is the main train station in Rome. And we had the opportunity to go to a lounge that Trenitalia runs. And this was there, and there's Cathy. We could sit, we could unwind. They had espresso, they had wine, they had soft drinks, they had snacks. They had the train station let you know what train track your next train was going to be on, which I thought was going to be very valuable because they had 25 tracks there. And if you're stuck at the wrong end, you can actually miss your train. But they were very helpful. They spoke good English, and they helped us out quite a bit. Here's Cathy on the train from Rome Termini to Civitavecchia. And this is her in the train, just kind of meandering and looking around, having a good old time. When we got to Civitavecchia, and we, it's tough to say, and we got to the hotel, we checked in, got our stuff all aligned and whatnot. Cathy found this hole-in-the-wall place for dinner. And so I had, when you're in Italy, come on, what are you going to do? We're going to go have pizza, right? You're going to have some Italian food. So I had pizza, and you can see Cathy's salad. She had a salad right there. That was a kind of like a Euro salad with a Coke, and we had a great time. And it was actually pretty cheap. The food in Paris and the food in Civitavecchia was actually pretty reasonable. It really was. I think dinner, the most we spent for dinner any night was 60 euros, which was probably, $66, $67? It wasn't bad at all. Here we have a picture. This is a sailor kissing his girlfriend, and you can see, if you look to the right of that, you can see the people that are walking by it. It's a pretty big statue here in Civitavecchia, and so we decided to take a picture of that. They were also putting on a bazaar, and they were setting it up as we walked by, so we took a picture of that as well. This is over by the fort, Fort Michelangelo, and which is just before you get to the actual port itself. Cathy, of course, was chill and loved the chill shirt, so she was loving it and walking around, having a good old time. And there's Cathy and Rich just outside Fort Michelangelo. And we had a good time there. And this was taken right next to where the ships come in. We walked over to see, well, gee, do we walk over? Do we get a shuttle bus over? How are we going to do it? We took a shuttle bus. It was 30 euros total to go from the hotel to our ship. And they dropped us off at the terminal right at the front door. You couldn't have asked for better service. Cathy, she wanted to see the Louvre when we got to Paris. When we got to Italy, the one thing she wanted was gelato. We found a place that sold gelato at 9 o'clock in the morning. We walked in at 9:05, and the girl was just putting things together, and Cathy got her to get the gelato ready and gave her 2 scoops of gelato, which Cathy had. We went back later in the afternoon for yet another couple of scoops of gelato. We had to stop and get some Italian coffee, of course. Cathy got a latte. Rich had Americano, which I didn't realize at the time was really instant coffee. That's how they make Americano in Italy. This is the front desk of the hotel we stayed at. We stayed at the San Giorgio, which is a 4-star hotel in Civitavecchia, and a lot of beautiful people there, and they spoke good English, and we had a great time. This is looking the other way from the front desk, out toward the street, the main street in Civitavecchia. And this is our hotel room. You can see we bought some wine. You can take some wine on the cruise with you, and we did that. And we each had a bottle of wine. Mine is the one with the cork in it, and Cathy's had the kind of the champagne top to it. That's a king-size bed. We had 2 windows in our room, which was really nice, and it was a very spacious room. Compared to Paris, it was really spacious. Had a desk with a TV, and Cathy liked to watch Italian soccer. You're going to see that here in a minute. Actually, I think she was watching the Italian version of The Birds, but she was watching TV there. And that's the bathroom. We had the sink there. The shower is off to the right. The toilet and the bidet, and yes, they had a bidet, is off to the left. And no, we didn't use the bidet. There's Cathy, and she's watching the birds. One of the things that they have in Italy is limoncello, and they had a bottle of that. Cathy wanted to try that out, and she did at dinner before we got on the ship. So she had a limoncello spritzer and loved it. So I'm sure we're going to be buying some limoncello sometime now that we're back home. Rich had the spaghetti. Who goes to Italy and doesn't have pasta, right? I had clam and spaghetti and with olive oil dressing on it, and it was delicious. I must tell you, they know how to cook pasta in Italy. They should, right? Cathy had a bruschetta, and it was like with a cream on it, and I was a little surprised she ordered it because what you see, the brown things that you see on there, those are anchovies. She had 6 of them. She couldn't eat all 6, but she gave me one. They weren't bad at all. Little salty, but not bad at all. We had a great dinner that night. The next morning, we get up. We're having a good old time. We're waiting for the bus to take us to the ship. And so we sat in the lobby and just chatted with folks as they were getting ready to go as well. And there you have it. That was our pre-cruise trip to Paris and to Rome and Civitavecchia. Still tough to say. Anyway, coming up on the second part of this is going to be the cruise itself, followed by the back-to-back portion. You're going to see how we did the back-to-back, and then we'll do one on the shore excursions that we went on. We did visit Pompeii and Olympia, where the first Olympics were held. We went to Athens and climbed the Acropolis. We also went to Ephesus and saw a whole lot of stuff there, which I thought was really, really cool. And then we did stop off Palermo, Italy. We had to get an Italian pizza in Italy and did that. And then we went to Gibraltar and Alicante, Spain for paella. And that's all coming up in later episodes that you'll see. Until then, adios.